As Ralph Waldo Emerson said, imitation is death. At the level of thought and ego, universal experience is that there is nothing new under the sun. Ecclesiastes 1:9. You'll soon find out that it's written differently, something new, hard to find, and agree that everything is imitation and copying. I will do that. Nevertheless, I dare to write this article rather than my everyday feelings. I wanted to give it a little bit of meaning, so I dared to write in the first person. But still, it is in the first person, so I expressed myself in the third person. Of course, there was no great awakening and emotion in his life, so he wrote this. Instead, it is to write the familiar feelings that everyone feels, and it is significant. It's a subjective matter, and I'd like to think that others will understand it too. I only think of him because his God is perfect. I am writing, and I believe that he will help me write. In the beginning was the Word. John 1:1. This word is the Greek word logos, which means a word to say. It seems to have something to do with God created the heavens and the earth in the first chapter of Genesis. Early Christianity used to refer to Christ because he has creative powers. They wanted to show he was with God before the foundation of the world and was involved in creation with him. It was a mysterious event where words became words. But historicism in the past, those who valued high importance, ridiculed and downplayed the content of the Bible. But we now have the great proposition that God is our essence and being. I am standing in front. No one should deny this proposition. This is the most crucial point for him to write this article. Bible writers were that with the Greeks. They described Christ as the God of creation in a language that was easy to understand. It was an excellent decision to write the word as logos. Their expression was based on what the Greeks thought at the time. In this way, language unleashes creative imagination. God created the world with words and demonstrated the power of language. In the Old Testament, the first Hebrew word for God is Elohim. This name is written in the plural of El. It seems to be called generically. Elohim is portrayed as gods involved in creation as Elohim God. It continues to appear later and is used as a modifier of Yahweh's God. After that, the god El Shaddai means fertility and abundance. Israel was a people engaged in sheep herding, but they began farming when they settled in Canaan. As you get used to the industry, it seems you need a god like El Shaddai. There were rich in Baal or other gods in Canaan at the time. They found out that they were the gods of fertility, and maybe they were envious of them. They needed a god like El Shaddai. After that, as Israel became a tribe or state to some extent, conflicts involving Egypt and other neighboring countries had occurred. At that time, Israel needed stronger gods than the gods of other nations, and everything was possible. God as a savior, other gods in war, who will defeat them? God having a name like that. So the name Yahweh is more potent than other gods. After this, Yahweh God existed with different modifiers, according to the situation in Israel. The name Yahweh was maintained, and the only God of Israel was declared. After that, they settled exclusively under the name of Yahweh Elohim. Although Yahweh Elohim is one of the strongest gods in creation, the word Elohim indicates that Yahweh was also involved in the creation. The name of Yahweh is what he is like in his plagues on Egypt, exposed as a disaster. The first plague is on the Nile River. The Egyptians used the Nile River. He was worshipped as a god of heals. All the water of the Nile in sight. By turning the water of the Nile, the divine object, into blood, the symbol of death, was so the Egyptians could see that they had changed. The second plague was sacred because frogs were believed to fertilize the land of Egypt. Hecht, a goddess with a human body, had a frog's head. She is the god of fertility and abundance, and serves as the god who brings the rainy season to the Nile River. Due to the early appearance of the frogs, the king of Egypt and the people were eating food that would harm their health. The third plague is a disaster that originates from the earth and has a relationship with the earth god Geb. The Egyptians gave thanks to Geb, god of the earth, whenever they plowed the fields and served. For them, soil meant life and abundance. The Egyptian god associated with the fourth plague is Khepra. She had the appearance of a scarab and was worshipped as a god who managed the day's schedule. The Egyptian gods who judged through the fifth plague were Hathor, god of beauty, and his wife of Horus, in the form of a cow, Apis, god of fertility, and Heliopolis, the image and figure of a bull. The Egyptian god who judged through the sixth plague was Imhotep. The seventh plague was hail damage to barley and hemp. People of Israel were vengeful at Pharaoh's request to make bricks out of straw. It was aimed at Shu, the god of agriculture, Isis, the god of agriculture, and Tefnut, the god of moisture. The eighth plague was a disaster for the earth god Seragia and the god of spiritual warfare. The ninth plague, the scourge of darkness, destroyed Ra, the sun god, the supreme god of the Egyptians. It was a calamity that proved that Yahweh was the only God of gods. The 10th plague was the plague that killed the firstborn. The death of the firstborn included Pharaoh's firstborn. This calamity was for Osiris, the god of fertility, and Isis, the god of life. It was a severe disaster, and Pharaoh gave up. Yahweh was more substantial than all the gods of Egypt. He showed his power as a being and subdued Pharaoh and the gods of Egypt. In this way, when a language becomes a name, the name reflects the person's essence. It was used to get out and announce one's existence. Ludwig Andreas von Feuerbach once said, "God is that man reflects himself." Human beings create names for gods according to their needs. Through his name, he declares gods as personal beings and his desire for God. It means trying to express. Efforts like this continue to appear in history, and they have tried to reveal their desires and existence. They and their covenants with God wanted to let them know that God has chosen them and that they had a special relationship with him. The human heart instinctively senses the existence of God and has a sense of reverence for God. This happens because being with God is everything, and because they knew it was possible for all. We quickly recognize this and do God's work for ourselves. They do not hesitate to use the name. But our hearts are before God. It was to experience human limitations. We talk about God in our pictures. Even if you describe it, you run into the limit of expression. No matter how well our language talks about it, we can't help but be disappointed in our minds, thoughts, and egos, because it's an incomplete expression. We feel that he is something we cannot describe in our language. So, I begin my writing with this premise. As already mentioned in Genesis 1, God is the Word of the world. He said we could create something if we had faith as small as a mustard seed. By faith in the Word, we can command this mountain to move from here to there. Remember this article. Faith transcends all limits. Scientists say the universe is a wave and a particle. Due to the nature of the wave in the universe, we can see that it is constantly vibrating and propagating. The Word is the energy of creation expressed in vibration. God is infinite, and it is the energy of creation. He is also the infinite space of all energy in the universe. This vibrational energy connects all matter, and its kairos, when it reaches, it explodes to propagate this energy continuously. We are saying he created everything with the Word. If we look at the first chapter of Genesis, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was void and empty and dark over the depths, and the Spirit of God was on the waters. And God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light. The morning was good in God's sight. God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and he called the darkness night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. God said, 'Let there be a firmament amid the waters, to separate the waters from the waters.' God made the sky to separate the waters under the firmament from the waters above it. God called the firmament heaven, and it was evening, and it was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the heavens gather in one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters gathered were bearing plants and seed according to each kind. "Bring forth a tree that bears its fruit." And it was so. It brought forth seed-bearing vegetables according to their kind, and trees bearing fruit-bearing seeds according to their kind. And there was evening and there was morning, and it was the third day. God said, "There are lights in the expanse of the sky, day and night, and let them be signs and seasons, and days and years. Let the lights be in the firmament of the sky to illuminate the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, and made the great lights to rule the day. He made the night with silver light, and made the stars. God put things into the firmament of the heavens to give light to the earth. He rules day and night, and made a division between the light and the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, "Let the living creatures that you have heard multiply. Let the birds fly above the earth in the expanse of the sky." God created the fantastic sea beasts and every living creature that moved in the water. God created every winged bird according to its kind. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "The earth brings forth living creatures according to their kind, livestock and creeping things and beasts of the earth after their kind." God gave the beasts of the earth according to their kind, and it was so. God made after his kind, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth after his style. God said, "According to our image, let us make man, that they may rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky." He created man in his image. In the image of God, he created male and female. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and the fish of the sea. Have dominion over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." To this he said, "I will take every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every seed-bearing fruit, and it will be your food. And all the beasts of the earth, and to every bird in the sky, and to every creature that creeps on the earth, where there is life, I will give you green plants for food." And it was so. God saw all that, and saw that it was perfect. There was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. In this way, he creates with the word. His creative work is still, but it's not over. The universe is constantly being created. This is the providence of God and his will. This creation has been ongoing and continues to this day. We must know that he is the providence of both the world and humans. We are connected as one and are participating in the history of creation. Being part of the creative energy means that we too have a creative role in this world. After we left the Garden of Eden, we lost ourselves in the image of God. It is said that we have lost our creative power after falling. But we, as a being in the inner heart, maintain its original form and relate to God. We do not realize our actual existence by thought and ego, but God is constantly vibrating and speaking to us in his language. It's God. If we want to connect with God, if we tune to his frequency, it's possible. However, after being expelled from the Garden of Eden, our vibrational energy is weak. It became difficult to tune to God's frequency. We are still connected with God, but communication has become difficult. The vibrational energy we have does not reach the spiritual level. It is a frequency of the material dimension, and its energy is not eternal, but virtual. It is meaningless to disappear immediately. We use our thoughts and our ego in this matter. We are striving within our reach. However, if we get out of our thinking and ego, it is possible to get out of the realm of intention and find our true selves. How can we find our true selves? Solving this homework is the intention of writing this article. We can play a creative role in the material world. We imagine because we are creating the material world. But such a window is a virtual and meaningless thing that will soon disappear. Thought and ego is a product, not creation. but destruction or separation would be more suitable. Medical scientists believe that our left brain treats the virtual as if it were a phenomenon by recognizing it. In this awareness, there are human beings in thought and ego. Our superficial mind is connected to our thoughts and our ego, but the inner mind is the mind that transcends thoughts and ego. It is the creator associated with God. If the inner reason is active within us, it is the appropriation of creation. I can afford to do it. The material world is not real, but virtual, which will soon disappear. The whole universe, this world is energy, is made up of matter. Matter is in a state of energy. It appears as a particle with a wave. Our minds take on the role of creation, but in the pictures they draw. There is a difference. Our superficial mind is at the level of thinking and ego, and anxiety and fear remain as a language, virtual, not real, and disappear. I am painting. This world is a virtual reality they have created, an illusion, not essence, and not eternal, to play our creative role. That's why you can't deal with it. The material world has a beginning and an end, and when observed, waves turn into particles. So it exists, but if you don't watch it, it disappears to turn into a wave. In thought and ego, all that exists is empty space. But we have no meaning in this world. We give and live with too much preoccupation, are disappointed and frustrated with the world, and live in pain.